Hi, I'm Ken. In this Shards of Alara video, we'll be visiting the Shard of Naya. The three Naya colors are red, green, and white. Naya is an untamed wild land where gigantic creatures are worshipped as gods. Its major mechanic is something we call 5 power matters. A bunch of Naya cards do good things for you if you control a creature whose power is 5 or greater. Harkenklauen-Gargantuan has an ability that targets a creature with power 5 or greater. It can target any creature with enough power, including itself. When checking a creature's power, it doesn't matter what number is printed in the box in the lower right corner of the card. It matters what the creature's power is according to the current game state. If Goblin Piker's power is 5 or more, Harkenklauen-Gargantuan can give it first strike. Because Harkenklauen-Gargantuan's ability targets a creature, it checks that creature's power twice, once when you play the ability, and again when it resolves. If the creature's power is too small when the ability tries to resolve, the ability is countered, and the creature won't get first strike. If the ability does resolve, the creature has first strike for the rest of the turn. It doesn't matter what happens to its power later. Gustrider Exuberant has an ability that affects creatures with power 5 or greater, but doesn't target them. This kind of ability checks the power of your creatures only when it resolves. After it locks in which creatures it gives flying to, that set of creatures won't change. It doesn't matter whether your creatures get bigger or smaller later in the turn. Where Ancient's Tread has an ability that triggers whenever a creature with power 5 or greater comes into play under your control. This kind of ability checks the power of your creatures only when it triggers. Each time a creature comes into play under your control, check its power as it enters play. Take into account any counters it comes into play with, as well as abilities from cards like Glorious Anthem that are always true. After a creature is already in play, changing its power does no good. If the ability has triggered, shrinking the creature won't stop it. But if the ability hasn't triggered, pumping up the creature won't help. It's too late by then. Sunseed Nurturer says, at the end of your turn, if you control a creature with power 5 or greater, you gain 2 life. This kind of ability checks the power of your creatures when it triggers and when it resolves. At the end of the turn, if you control any creatures with power 5 or greater, this ability will trigger once. It doesn't matter how many of those creatures you control. Then, when the ability resolves, it checks again to see if you have any. Power boosting effects that last until the end of the turn, like Giant Growth, will still be in effect by this point. And there you have it. When it comes to Naya, the bigger the better.